Well, hello there. Fancy seeing you here. Do you come here often? Hello, and welcome to the Aaron Lincoln Smith Podcast. This is episode 0, where I, your host, the Aaron Lincoln Smith, accept no posers, imposters, evil doppelgangers, or substitutes, will set out on a journey into mystery, a magical mystery tour, if you will, to define the parameters of this podcast and what you should expect. To counteract my Robert Plantian tendency to ramble on, I think the easiest way to organize my stream of consciousness on this topic is to run through a series of questions relevant to the task at hand so that I can quickly provide you with the information that you need as a responsible content consumer to decide whether or not this podcast and subsequently the man behind the microphone and his music are worthy of your precious time in a saturated marketplace. Okay, this is rapid response time. Here we go. Question 1, who am I and why am I doing this? Good question. Well, I am a 39-year-old married father of 3. I am a teacher by trade, and I guess you could call me an aspiring singer-songwriter, although I have been writing my own music for over 20 years. It's the singer-songwriter thing that has led to the creation of this podcast. This sort of leads into question 2, which I think is pretty obvious. You are old, so why haven't you ever shared your music before, and why haven't I heard of you? Excellent question, Aaron. Well, my response to that would be multi-tiered and somewhat complex. First, I've always chosen to live my life as if music were a hobby rather than a potential career. And if I'm really honest, my wife and I have planned our lives around each other, and our careers really just fell into place around our relationship. You could contrast this with the way that a good number of people get set up for their education and career first, and then find a relationship that fits the mold of their careers. There's nothing wrong with that. Different strokes for different folks, whatever makes you happy. But my wife and I chose to focus on our relationship, and that required certain sacrifices from the both of us. So now allow me to talk a little bit about how my wife and I's relationship began, because I think that can provide a little bit of the backstory necessary to understand why I am finally doing this now at this point in my life. My wife and I first met in college. I was fresh off of studying abroad in Japan, and when I returned to Center College in the spring of 2004, I met an absolutely stunning, breathtakingly gorgeous, and remarkably sweet Japanese exchange student. We began dating, and when it came time for her to return home, we kept the relationship together, and we would use breaks in the academic calendar to take turns visiting each other in America and Japan. After graduating, rather than pursuing my PhD in religion to be a professor, I chose to steal a line from the late, great Dr. Sean McGuire. I went to Japan to see about a girl. And that is something that I do not regret, because it's kind of working out well so far. And since I'm quoting, famous people, allow me to allude to Robert Frost and say that choosing the road less traveled has made all the difference in my life. My point with this soliloquy is that music has not been the priority in my life. To each their own, but I was never willing to compromise the one sure thing in my life, the love of my life, to dive headfirst into the nebulous pursuit of a career as a singer-songwriter. I prioritize my dreams, and the hopeless romantic in me won out. I mean, what's more improbable? Finding your soulmate who grew up 7,000 miles away on the other side of the world in another language and culture, or barely getting by playing original music on empty stages, limping to venues in a mildewed Chevy Astro van that's always just about to break down, subsisting on ketchup packets and Diet Dr. Pepper. I know I made the right decision because my wife definitely smells much better than a Chevy Astro van. My life has been sunshine and daisies, and yet I'm here. So we briefly entertained moving to LA at one point to see if I could start up a band, and right around the time we were making serious plans to do that, we found out that we were pregnant with our first child. I gravitated towards a career in education because I had experience teaching English in Japan. Education had made a tremendous difference in my life. It opened me up to the entire world. It allowed me to become fluent in a different language and culture and just completely changed the trajectory of my life, and I wanted to have that same type of influence in other people's lives. It was also something that I happened to be good at, and it made me feel good helping young people. And most importantly, I mean, let's be real here, teaching is a job that helps pay the bills, and since I have 3 kids, there's a lot of bills that need to be paid. Fortunately, I have found over time that I absolutely love my job and being a dad. But those 2 subjects deserve to be explored in separate podcasts, and I am attempting to kind of stick to the script here. The next layer to peel off this musical onion is that I have intended to share my music, but because it hasn't been a priority, I have pushed it off time and time again for years and years. I actually began recording some selected tracks with a band back in 2018, but that quickly got complicated with the real-world schedules and priorities of my bandmates and I. I also realized the project was a little bit too ambitious. I have spent a lot of time learning the guitar and vocal tracks to create something I can be truly proud of, and I still have much work to do to accomplish this. The project is still in the works, but it's just not ready yet, and I've grown pretty impatient. During the summer, as a teacher, I have a lot of time to reflect, and this summer there was just this tremendous longing to share what's inside of me with the rest of the world. There are so many people in my life that I care about that don't even know that I write my own songs. This is a huge part of who I am, and I feel like I've been hiding that, and I don't really know why. I guess it's because I've been afraid of what other people will think, and the voice of my inner critic has often drowned out the still, small voice of the inner artist inside of me that wants the self-expression of my talent let free to run in the wild. I think I've finally gotten to the point that it would be more excruciating for me to go another year without sharing this music inside of me than to have my music dissected and criticized. While I know my music is not for everyone, it reveals the prism through which I view the world. It blurs the lines between my thoughts and my motivations and is a fingerprint into my psyche. To share it is to bare the inner workings of my soul and almost stand naked before the audience, my flaws laid bare for all to see. And yet, maybe through this project, I can inspire other silent artists at the same stage in life, or maybe even younger, older, to come clean and reveal their true selves. Now, that answer wasn't so rapid fire, was it? Next question. How do I know the music you write is any good if you waited so long to share it? Excellent question. I guess the answer to that depends on what you define as good. Obviously, you can listen to my music on streaming platforms and on YouTube and decide for yourself. If you define good music as commercial music, you're going to be disappointed with what I am bringing to the table. But if you appreciate original music as an honest method of self-expression, then you will probably like what I'm trying to do. Music can have integrity no matter the artist, their genre, or their demographics. When I was living in Japan, a Japanese colleague once told me, as human beings, we are unique, but we're not that different. We all have families, no matter what our families look like or who lives in our house or how many people are in our family. When I wake up in the morning, I eat miso soup and rice, and in America, you might eat cereal. It was at that point that I interrupted him and said, "Fruity Pebbles, please continue." And he said, whether we eat Fruity Pebbles or miso soup, we still eat breakfast. We all eat food. The point I'm trying to convey here with that story and that recollection of that conversation is that individually we're all different, but we have so many experiences in common simply due to the nature of our shared humanity. My hope is that I truly and honestly capture aspects of that experience with the songs that I write, and that you will connect with these songs because of that. Next question. Why the podcast? The podcast is shameless self-promotion. It's to promote my music and to connect with listeners. To put the podcast in proper context, over the next 6 months, I'm going to release one original song each month. This podcast is a method of explaining the meaning behind each song and my history in writing it. My music is not going to be recorded and produced as well as other artists, but what I can try to do is connect with people that enjoy the music on the deepest grassroots level possible. At the end of this 6-month musical journey and this podcast project, I'll decide upon next steps and reassess the trajectory of this art, of what I'm trying to do. Last questions. How are you recording these songs, and what is the production like? Well then, these songs are recorded live from my basement with a 2-microphone setup. I have a Shure SM58, which I'm using now for this podcast for the vocals, and an SE Electronics SE8 condenser microphone for the acoustic guitar. The tracks were recorded live, so there's no sound isolation between the two. I use basic plugins in Apple Logic Pro for EQ and compression, and an automated mastering software in the form of Isotope Ozone 9, so nothing out of the ordinary, nothing very expensive, just very basic stuff. My YouTube videos capture the video of this live performance along with the recorded audio, and each original track by itself will be available wherever you stream your music. I've done my best to present the purest form of my performance. That's really important to me. It's nothing but me and my acoustic guitar. I feel like a lot of modern music sounds too perfect and is overly produced. That is just my opinion. I understand that artists that want to do that and utilizes those methods of making their productions the most perfect that they possibly can. They really want to present the best version of themselves, the best version of their music to their audience. And I understand that and I respect that. But that's not me. Okay? So, like I was touching upon, so much software is used to correct every little flaw in rhythm and in pitch. And I feel like sometimes a part of the human element can be lost depending on how much processing is used. And as I said, that's just not me. I purposely did not play these songs with a click track, so each song has its own swing, which is not going to be perfectly correct in time. There's no auto-tune, so you're going to hear imperfect vocals that wobble in and out of tune. I wanted to capture my performance just like you were in my basement with me, 5 feet away, listening to me play these songs. That's the way that I wrote them, and that's how they are intended to be listened to. I performed the song live 3 times and picked what I believe to be the best performance of the 3. Even the performance that I chose, you can tell it's not perfect, but in a way there's something very powerful and poignant in that imperfection. My goal was to capture the humanity, purity, originality, and energy in a performance that existed only inside the confines of that space and time, and only captured by that live recording. I want these performances to be like our lives, unique and wholly unrepeatable. And on that note, we close episode 0 of the Aaron Lincoln Smith podcast. I look forward to the challenge of proving to you that I'm as good as I think I am. Is that misplaced confidence, arrogance, or honesty? You'll have to keep tuning in to find out, and you'll have to keep listening to my music to make a decision for yourself. Up next is episode 1, where I muse on the creation, meaning, and history of song 1 in my 6-song project, and that song is called My Pure Motives. Again, I am Aaron Lincoln Smith. The song for this month is called My Pure Motives, and you can check it out on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you choose to stream your music. Also, check out My Pure Motives on YouTube, where you can also subscribe to the Aaron Lincoln Smith YouTube channel. And of course, don't forget to follow this podcast. And lastly, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to be here with me, to listen to my words, and to be a part of this project that I'm trying to get up off the ground. I really am so grateful and so thankful for your participation and your involvement in this. Once again, I'm Aaron Lincoln Smith. I hope you enjoy my music, but even if you don't, that's okay. I still love you, and we can be friends. Until next time, sayonara, and o genki de. Mata yoroshiku onegai itashimasu. 以上です。